new babe.
So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Now listen, we back with another soft white underbelly video, man. Crazy name for a channel. I like it though. I like it. It's different. You know what I mean? Go show them some love, man. They be having some dope, super dope interviews, man. I think one of the ones we watched before was the Whitakers, man. I was kind of upset about that video a little bit, but go watch it and check it out. This one here we got today, man, Warden / executioner interview of Charlie Jones, right? He was a warden at an Alabama state prison, I think. I want to say, is that how it reads in the description? It says former warden and executioner at Holman Prison in Atmore, Alabama. So I'm not familiar with that. Maybe some of the Alabama family members in there, you will not hear me saying Roll Tide. I can't stand that. I hate that I even had to say it just then right there. But anyway, I'm not too familiar with this prison, man, but we're going to check this interview out. I'm always intrigued and have always wanted to hear from a warden of a prison. Just to hear what it's like to run a prison, man. What it's like, what type of things he's faced with, type of stuff he's seen, been through, experienced, that type of stuff like that. So an interview like this definitely intrigues me, all right? So we're going to get to it, man. Hold on. That sitting on the screen is going to bother me. Let me exit out and go. It's still there. Hold on, y'all. Let me hit refresh. That on the screen would bother me to death.
All right, Charlie Jones. Charlie, you were the warden at Holman Prison in Atmore, Alabama.
Right.
How many years were you the warden at Holman?
30. Oh, well, I was warden for 18. I worked in the prison system for 35.
35 years. And you grew up where? In Alabama?
Right here.
Tell me about your childhood. You had both your parents?
Yeah.
How would you describe your childhood?
Oh, just normal. Went to school, finished school, went to college, finished that. Come back here, built a house, and
Gotta love that accent, though. He got that super southern draw accent, bro.
I'm 9 miles from the prison. I lived here most of the time. I've been moved around all over the state at different prisons.
How many prisoners did you have at Holman?
Approximately 1,000.
And you had death row inmates at Holman?
Right.
Holman's the only prison in Alabama that has
right.
the death penalty, has executions, right? As warden for 18 years, what's your view on the death penalty? Do you see it as an effective way to control crime or keep society in line?
Well, I think you have to on bad cases. You can't, for certain things you can do other things, but the way death row was set up, it's pretty bad. You have to have a pretty bad crime to be put on death row. You have to have a combination of murder, robbery, murder, rape, or something like that before you qualify for it. But sooner or later, these other non-serious crimes, in my view, will have to be done other ways because the taxpayer's not going to pay to have all of them locked up.
That's a fact. You hear a lot of people now saying like why do we continue to have to, you know what I mean, pay for this, that, and the third? But that's not what I stopped the video for. Listen, I'm always conflicted by the death penalty, bro. Some days I'm for it, some days I'm against it. You know what I mean? The right case come on, or you hear about how bad somebody did something to someone else or what they may have done to a kid or something like that, and it gets my blood to boiling, and I'm for it. You know what I mean? I'm just conflicted. How do y'all feel? It was just a great question. How do y'all feel about the death penalty, man? You know what I mean? I'm just always, and that's just I equate it to the human side of me, bro. That just has issues with it sometimes, and has me to be, wishy-washy and flip-flopping back and forth about it. How do y'all feel?
Too many of them.
It gets expensive, right?
Yeah.
So as warden at Holman, part of your job was to perform the executions, right?
Right.
You're using the electric chair or lethal injections?
It was a chair.
So by the time a man gets to the electric chair, where do you see your role in the end of his life? Do you see it as you're responsible for that? You're the one that's pulling the trigger?
Well, technically, I guess I was, but a lot of things happen between the time that he's arrested and the time he has to sit in that chair. It's a long, drawn-out process that can last as long as 20 years, sometimes longer than that.
There's a lot of steps a suspect would have to go through before he sits in the electric chair, right?
Yep. A crime committed, and there's an investigation, and then they follow the investigation until they arrest somebody, and then he's arraigned, and then he's tried, and 12 people sit in judgment on him. And if he's convicted, he goes to prison, goes to death row. Then his appeal process starts, and it is long and drawn out. Alabama Supreme Court, Court of Criminal Appeals, state court, it can last on and on.
And see, that's one thing with me. I'm always like, why does it take so long? How can a person be convicted and then go sit on death row for 10, 20 years? Just baffles me. But hearing him talk about it, it had me thinking, I'm guessing they want to be for sure. So they want to make extra cautious that they've got the guy and this is the right conviction. So they're probably going through, like he said, appeals. They're probably going through everything just to be sure that they don't execute somebody that they weren't supposed to. So hearing him say that, I can imagine why that process takes so long. It's them trying to make sure they've turned over every rock and stone and made sure they've dotted all I's and crossed all T's. I get it.
So by the time he gets to the electric chair, it's pretty certain that he's guilty.
By the time, yeah, well, not always. There's some time they can go right up pretty close to the time, and the attorney come up with something that he appeals one last time to the Alabama Supreme Court, and they'll give him a stay. It don't always last. Might last a day, might last a week, might last 3 or 4 years. But most of the time, once I'm served or was served with a warrant, a death warrant, then it's getting really serious. I get that warrant 30 days prior to the date. And during that time, the attorneys for both sides, they get busy. And they try to come up with something to stop it. Sometimes they do, and by that time, most times they didn't.
What is that death row inmate's last moments like before he is executed? Can you describe that?
Well, you talking about the day of.
The day of, yeah.
Well, the day of, the inmate would spend most of the day with his family on the visiting yard. We'd leave him out there approximately 2 hours before the time to get him ready. And we'd take him off the visiting yard, escort him back to his cell. The execution team would get him dressed, shave his head, shave his ankle, left ankle, and get him ready. By that time, it's right around 12 a.m., 12:01 a.m., and they would call me. I'd be in my office. I stayed in my office.
12 a.m. midnight.
Do what?
Midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd stay in my office while they did that in case we got a call from the governor or from the attorney general or from the court putting it off. If we didn't, then somebody would man the phone while I would go to the death chamber. By the time I got down there, they've got him in the chair.
How many of y'all are thinking about Green Mile right now? That whole thing he just described, how many of y'all were thinking about Green Mile right then? I know I was. Also, how many of y'all put yourself in that shoes of a person going through that situation just then? Just thinking about that. You being on the yard with your family for 2 hours. Then you going back to your cell. You know what I mean? Then them shaving your ankles and your head. And then, you know what I'm saying? I went from putting myself in that person's shoes to then ultimately Green Mile and just thinking about that. And also thinking about making sure they wet the sponge. You know what I mean?
Wrapped in, ready to go. By law, I had to read that death warrant to him. And I would ask him if he had any last request or statement. Most of them didn't. If not, then I would tell the 2 officers in the death chamber to make him ready. Final readiness was putting a helmet on him and putting an ankle bracelet on him. And then I would leave the death chamber, go in next door to the equipment room. The 2 officers would come out. I didn't want to leave anybody in there with him for fear that somebody might pass out and fall into him. And once they come out, they'd give me a signal, tap on the door, and it was all over with.
Imagine what he has to sleep with, and I don't know if I could have did that. I don't know if I could have did that, bro. Imagine how many of those executions he's seen. Now that when he goes to sleep at night, he still replays a lot of those scenes over and over and over in his head, bro. That's a job I don't think I could do. Could you do that job, bro? See that over and over and over again. Now, granted, it's probably not that. I would love if he asked him how many he's done in his whole career to gauge it. But I don't care if you did 1 or 2, 3 of them. That's enough to be like, to have that replay in your mind. It's just certain stuff I don't want to have to think about.
It's just a flip of a switch.
Press of a button.
Press of a button. How did this affect you personally, doing this?
Yes.
Well,
Great question.
How many did you perform?
I did 17 men and 1 woman.
How did it affect you personally?
Well, that's a good question. I've never let their problem become my problem. And I didn't put them there. I didn't go out and arrest them and sit in judgment on them. Once they got there, that was their problem. And they knew that. And I tried to treat them in such a way and had my staff treat them in such a way that when the time came, you know, we didn't have to look away from them. We could look them in the eye and let them know what's fixing to take place and what to watch for, and, you know, here it comes. And afterwards, you know, it lays on your mind. It did me, but not a guilt thing. Just hoping that I had done everything to be sure that his case was as perfect as it could be, that there was in no way me or my staff the cause of him having to sit in that chair when maybe he shouldn't have. If he shouldn't have, then it was somebody else's mishandling, not us. So, you know, I don't lose sleep over it. To tell you the truth, very seldom think about it.
What kind of reactions would you see from the men as they approach their last day?
Not a lot. Most of them was ready. They would, you know, we would take them out of their regular cell.
That's the one thing about
24 hours.
It's the weirdest shot ever.
Ahead of time and put them in what we call the ready cell, the death cell. Once we got them down there and they were away from all their friends on the cell block, they settled down really well. I can only recall one that seemed like he carried a grudge to the chair, but the rest of them didn't. They let it go, and most of them, at one time or another, during that short period, admitted what they done.
Eventually, they admitted their crimes.
Yeah. Not all of them, but most of them.
Is there one in particular that stood out in your memory?
Yeah, but I can't recall his name. You've seen people that carried, I don't know what you'd call it, but they were mad all the time. You had to be careful how you spoke to them. You say good morning to them, they get mad at you. That's kind of the way this guy was.
What do you think the core cause is of a hardened criminal's behavior? I mean, do you think it was his environment or his family or his brain chemistry? What do you think is the cause of what makes a criminal?
I don't know. If I knew that, I could probably rest easy the rest of my life. I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. I think a lot of them grew up without a father, not knowing who their father was, and getting with the wrong crowd as they grew up, making bad choices, and going around trying to take away stuff that didn't belong to them.
It all goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Do what?
It all goes hand in hand.
It's, you know, to answer your question, I think it's a combination of all that stuff.
And you're retired now, but in your decades of working in the prison system, how have you seen criminals change? I mean, do you see they're more violent? How are they different now than they were in the past? Drugs are a bigger part of the picture now, right?
The what?
Drugs are a bigger part of the picture now.
Oh, yeah. Most of, not on death row, but regular population, most of the inmates in the regular population that it maybe didn't come to prison because of drugs, but drugs was always involved.
How do you look at this part of your life that you had? I mean, this chapter of your life. It's certainly very unusual. How do you view it?
Well, I guess I look at it like anybody else looks at something that they do, a farmer or whatever. It's something that I did, and I knew what it was when I took the job. It wasn't no surprise, you know. I knew that eventually that I'd have to do that. And now, you know, I look back on it, and I know I did everything I could to see that they were treated, not just at death row, but all of them, that were treated right wasn't abused. And at the same time, now we didn't let them do us that way either. But we didn't have that much trouble. And I look back on that as that I did all I could to be sure they were treated right. I've met them on the street, and they would run to me with a hand out. And, some of them I'd recognize, some of them I didn't, and they'd have to tell me who they were. I've had some of them tell me, I kept them from getting in bad trouble in prison. And I knew by something I could gauge what I did. Maybe I did all I could to do what was right. I don't have any regrets of anything. And the main thing, I mentioned it a while ago, I did not let people put me on a guilt trip about what I had to do, and I did not allow the inmate's problem to become my problem.
I think that's pretty important right there, bro. Pretty important. Taking that type of job on, you got to learn how to remove your feelings and leave them at the door when you come to work, bro. Because an inmate could easily try to make his problem your problem, make you feel bad, try to guilt trip you. You know what I mean? Any type of tactic. You gotta be firm in that position. And like he said, man, he knew what the job entailed when he signed up for it. You really gotta understand for that type of job, you gotta understand if you are made for that position. And I'd imagine you find out pretty quick if you're made for a position like that, bro. That's not something to take lightly at all.
Problem. They had to do what they had to do. I did what I had to do. And they just have to let the rough end drag.
All right, Johnny. Thank you so much for talking with me. Very interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely. One of the more interesting interviews that we've seen, bro. Hearing from a warden who had to perform executions on death row, bro. Like I said, and right after I said that about the questions, bro, he asked him those two questions. How many he had done, and how did it affect you? You know what I'm saying? 16 men, 1 woman, I think it was. That's a lot. That's a lot of people, bro. You know what I mean? He handled it, in my opinion, pretty well. He seems to have no regrets. He felt like he did what he was supposed to do, his job, and he performed those executions, which was basically carrying out an action, a reaction to an action. You know what I'm saying? And basically that was his job. They performed the action that landed them there, and his reaction, his job for that was to perform that execution. So when he looked at it like that, he was doing his job. He was doing it to the best of his ability. He was treating them fair and everything like that, man. And wow, is all I can say, fam. That's just one of those jobs that I know my place, and I knew I cannot do that. I couldn't have done that. You know what I'm saying? Not that job. No. I don't want to see nobody's face when I close my eyes. You feel me? Yeah. Amazing interview, man. Y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think, all right? It's your boy L. Stick around and stay tuned to the next reaction. I'm gone. Peace.